First things first. On Whole Cake Island, Luffy experienced one Charlotte Charles Barkley Katakuri. And Katakuri was devastating. Absolutely dominant. Even after the merienda, the man regained the entire pace of the fight. And Luffy had to run away. And Luffy, after running away, thought to himself, alright, hold on, time out. How can I get my Observation Haki good enough to where I can see the future like Katakuri is? And then from there, his Observation Haki starting to improve by leaps and bounds. And now we're seeing Luffy with a new stage, a new level of Observation Haki. Next, in the case of Armament Haki, obviously, the poor boy, the poor lad, my god. He had to go through the Raime Hake. My goodness, a one-shot, a phenomenal strike on the part of one Yonko Kaido. The baby shake. The baby shake, links in the box below. Teespring.com. Yeah, pick it up. The baby shake was in full effect, and Luffy, after getting rocked, realizing he did no damage to Kaido. In the anime, he does the Kong organ and the King Kong gun and the King Kong gun like manga. No damage. Thought to himself, alright, hold on, time out. How can I bypass the scales of Kaido? Because that's what he believes is the issue, the scales of Kaido. After tutelage under Hyogoro Sensei, Hyogoro Sifu, we see that Luffy has now achieved another stage, another level of Armament Haki. Following that trend over the past 2 arcs, it is very safe to assume, at this point in time, that Conquerors Haki has another level, another stage to it, just like the other 2 Hakis. Granted, I will acknowledge that it could be the case where even though you can train the ability, according to Rayleigh, and make it stronger, that there is no unique other property to it. For example, it could be as simple as the stronger your Conquerors Haki is, the more you can just knock out definitively when it comes to people and living things. In the case of Shanks and Rayleigh in Fishman Island, according to Ichiro Oda himself, they would have knocked out 100,000 fishmen, where Luffy only did 50, he only did half of that number. So Luffy's Conquerors Haki is only half as good as Rayleigh's or Shanks' Conquerors Haki. So it could be possible where that is just simply it, where the stronger your Conquerors Haki is, the more you can knock out just in general. However, I'm of the mindset that Conquerors Haki definitely has another unique property to it, another stage to it. And in the future, Luffy will absolutely achieve this next stage without question. The Haki that was the most prominent that he used in the pre-time skip was Conquerors Haki. Although he did it subconsciously, he still did it. And then when it came to, let's say, the post-time skip, we're seeing how that improved from the very beginning, where he knocks out specifically the fake Straw Hats that are coming his way. He knocks out 50,000 fishmen strong, all the way up to Wano Country, where the guy does it while he's unconscious. The man is not even conscious, and he does it. So do keep in mind that yes, even though Luffy's armament observation have been growing, his affinity for Haki is Conquerors Haki. And a lot of folks do think that the ability is useless, but I'll disagree with those folks, obviously, because mainly it comes down to it's inconsistent, which is true to an extent, and also it's not used well in one-on-one fights, if at all, which, fair enough, but not all fights are one-on-one fights. A quick example, all right? If you have Shanks and Mihawk on Fishman Island, Shank can knock all those guys out, easy peasy, call it a damn day, whereas Mihawk has to actively take those guys out. Not saying it'll be difficult for Mihawk, but he has to actively do it, because as far as we know, as far, keywords here, as far as we know, Mihawk does not have Conquerors Haki. Just like, for example, Garp. As far as we know, Garp does not have Conquerors Haki. But according to the data books, Sengoku does. So let's say instead of Shanks and Mihawk, it's Garp and Sengoku against the 100,000 Fishman army. Sengoku can knock those boys out, or at least allow those boys out, and then the rest are going to be easy pickings. Whereas for Garp, it's much more difficult because, again, as far as you know, he does not have the ability. So Conquerors Haki does matter for damn sure. But that being said, I would safely assume that, number one, this next stage of Conquerors Haki, whatever it's going to be, will have an effect in a one-on-one fight. Even if the person is, let's say, just as strong, a bit weaker, or even a bit stronger than you are from an overall combat standpoint. And I'll go as far as to say that because Luffy's affinity for Haki is Conquerors Haki, that this next stage of Conquerors Haki will be Luffy's trump card. Because think of it like this, all right? For real. How does Luffy beat Blackbeard? Like, honestly, Blackbeard is a stud right now with 2 devil fruits. And because he knew that Luffy was using Haki instinctively when they had their clash in Impel Down, he's also aware of Haki as well. So Blackbeard knows Haki to an extent, obviously. He has 2 devil fruits, and each one of like the highest order in that category. So it's like, wait a minute, how? Luffy can use his powers very well, and this Haki game is on point, but Blackbeard is he's just a bit much, isn't he? Well, if Luffy, at some point, can actually achieve this supposed next stage of Conquerors Haki and going further beyond,
is to go even further beyond!
This could be Luffy's trump card that will give him an edge in some capacity over Blackbeard. Like, not in full capacity, because again, you know, 2 devil fruits, that's a major edge. But that Conquerors Haki game has to be on point. Because again, I would like to believe genuinely so that this could be used in all settings, not just in a, you know, army against army or army against one, but also 1v1. There are a lot of options here when it comes to what could be the next stage of Conquerors Haki. However, I only want to focus on 3 because the rest are really like far out there. When I say far out there, I mean like imagine a Homo erectus, imagine a baboon, a chimp, reaching out for the moon. Never gonna happen. All right? I mean, unless like Planet of the Apes, then, you know, Caesar, Koba, and then they start making spaceships and whatever. It's not important. Look at. Here's what's far out there, okay? In my mind, we know that Conquerors Haki, when it comes to certain living things like creatures and human beings, it has an effect on them. Someone's will can affect people and other creatures. Potentially, you would think, like, let's say plants as well, maybe, in a weird situation. Like, let's say you have a active Venus flytrap, like a monster, you know, like from Mario, and then it's trying to attack one of the Straw Hats. Luffy could Conquerors Haki that thing, and then it will stop. So potentially even plants as well could be affected by Conquerors Haki. Who knows? But going further beyond
is to go
could be, let's say, non-living things. So matter and energy in general, where you can gain dominion over matter and energy. And what that would look like, I mean, maybe it'll be like a weird Tatsumaki, like, telekinesis thing, where someone could, let's say, move a boulder, like move a rock without touching it because they use their will. Like, that's, I mean, it's pretty far out there. Like, there's a boulder in someone's path, and then Conquerors Haki move, and then just move, something like that. Gaining dominion over non-living things as well, because as far as we know, via the breath of all things, the stones have breaths, Zoro's swords have breaths, inanimate objects, non-living things have breaths. So maybe you can also gain dominion over those breaths with Conquerors Haki, maybe. But again, it's super far out there. So like, let's say again, not only matter but also energy as well. So let's say like there's like a random fire, and this is what we see kind of in the anime of the Ace Sabo Luffy flashback, where Ace does his Conquerors Haki in the anime, and in the anime, the fire kind of like wisp away for a little bit, for like a few seconds. It kind of like disappears or like kind of dies down. That could be maybe-ish a sign of Conquerors Haki gaining dominion over energy itself. Like, that's kind of nuts. Like, you could divert or block, let's say, a random lightning bolt coming your way with Conquerors Haki or something. Like, what? So for me, this is a really far out there notion. Like, it really, really is. And there are others like this when it comes to what is possible. But I would rather focus on things that I think are more likely rather than things that are like really, really, really far reaching. In the future, if you guys want that far reaching, like what the hell kind of stuff, then okay, fine. I'll do a video on that one too. It'd be like the far reaching possibilities of Conquerors Haki. Something like that. But that's one of the things. That's one among like 4 or 5. Now, when it comes to the main 3 as to what's actually possible, I think, number 1 is that we do have these things called Conqueror Haki clashes, where we see it with Don Chinjan Luffy, we see it with Luffy and Doflamingo, we see it with Big Mom and Kaido and Shanks and Whitebeard, where in a particular attack, when they clash, whether it's Armament Haki related or not, the area is affected somehow with Conquerors Haki. In the case of the Yonko, Shanks and Whitebeard and Big Mom and Kaido, they split the entire sky in half. Where in the case of Dofi and Luffy and Don Chinjan Luffy, it was more like shockwaves that kind of pulsate the area. So potentially, these Conqueror Haki clashes can either A, augment attacks in general, or B, they can be persistent. So what does that mean? A, any attack that someone does, whether it's Armament Haki related or not. And I'm going to assume that for most part it is, because I would also assume that even though we don't see it there, I'm going to assume that Big Mom and Kaido, as well as Shanks and Whitebeard, had Armament Haki on their blades, weapons, when they did clash. I'm going to assume that. But if not, then that's fine too. Conquerors Haki, if it's directed in a certain way or certain manner, can strengthen one's own physical attacks. And actually, it would make more sense if it's Armament Haki related, because Armament Haki is essentially like soul or spirit, and Conquerors Haki is will. One's will would affect one's soul in many respects. And since will can affect one's soul or spirit, then in theory, one's Conqueror Haki, which is will, could also affect one's Armament Haki, which is spirit. There we go. And then B would be, what if that happened all the time? Well, let's say Luffy's fighting against somebody, and let's say it's like a group thing, like on Fishman Island. Let's say every time Luffy punched, he would release a Conqueror Haki wave of some kind. Therefore, every time he attacked, folks that had weak will could never be around him. That wouldn't be bad. That wouldn't be bad at all. Like every time, like almost like a Dragon Ball type of thing, where it's like you have these shockwaves that kind of span the area when they're clashing fists, but instead of this, it would be like Conquerors Haki pulses whenever someone attacks. And then also, something I want to point out as well, that could be in the same vein as this, is Big Mom's yell on Whole Cake Island after the Mother Caramel photo broke. Because when that Mother Caramel photo broke and she was crying, she was also emitting Conquerors Haki when she was yelling. And the yell was so powerful to where the missiles couldn't breach the sound barrier that Big Mom was creating when she was yelling. And because folks were getting knocked out as well during that incident, it's safe to say, or at least I think it's possible to say, that Conquerors Haki was embedded somehow, some way into that sound wave to where it made the sound wave more devastating. So the first thing, the next stage of Conquerors Haki could potentially be Conquerors Haki enhancing in some way, shape, or form various attacks, Armament Haki attacks or not. That's number one. Now, number two, the zone. And I don't mean like, you know, I don't mean Crocodile Basket, the zone. I don't mean A versus Kagami. No.
Happy feet.
What I'm talking about is, what if there's like a zone of sorts that someone can produce when they constantly, actively use Conquerors Haki for a long period of time, and then a pressure starts to build, and then that pressure can affect things in the environment because of one's willpower and one's willpower alone. For example, we do see Luffy and Katakuri, when they have their Conqueror Haki clash, in both manga and in anime, we do see the environment be affected by their Conquerors Haki. We don't see that for Dofi and Luffy, or for Don Chinjan Luffy. And of course, the main person I'm talking about is Shanks. Because when Luffy and Katakuri, when they did their clash of Conquerors Haki, that was like one shockwave clash, and that was it. But if you want to use the anime for reference here, and in the manga it's kind of the same way, but it's hard to tell in the manga because it's panels, obviously. But time does pass, where it's like, let's say, a minute or so, where Shanks, when he's on Whitebeard's ship, Shanks is knocking all these guys, and then the ship itself, the Moby Dick, starts to break a little bit because of Shanks' will. And Shanks is walking for a period of time. Again, like a minute or like 30 seconds, how you want to gauge exactly. In the anime, it's kind of like prolonged because in the anime, I mean, it's Toei One Piece. Of course, they're going to drag it out. It is what it is. But think of it as like, let's say Reiatsu in Bleach, where in Bleach, a lot of times higher tier characters could exude a sort of pressure on people. But in One Piece, in this case here with Conquerors Haki, that could be universal. So imagine like Fujitora when he pinned down Law on Greenbit for a period of time with his gravity fruit. It could be something like that, but to a less extent, of course, because folks could still move around. It's just that there's like a pressure or a weight on somebody because of that person's will, if their opponent is a Conqueror Haki user of that magnitude. And in this case, I would like to believe that someone would have to constantly use, all right? We haven't seen this yet. I think Shanks is like the close example to it, honestly. And in the movie with Douglas Bullet and Luffy, it's kind of there for like a few seconds, but I want to see someone, at least try to, someone not just do like one flex, like one, no. Think about when someone applies Armament Haki. They can do so for like a long period of time, for like, let's say minutes, hours, however you want to do it. They can apply it and they can leave it there. What if you could do the same thing for Conquerors Haki, where you can activate it, woo, and then just leave it there, like it's a damn zone, like a field. Like it's a field of this will and pressure. Or maybe even instead of that, it's like a Call of Duty UAV, where it's kind of like pulsing and spanning for a period of like minutes or hours. That's tough. That's tough. And that, I think, could be used in a one-on-one setting. Because if you could exude a pressure over somebody as you're fighting, as you're moving around and so on. Because now that I think about it, Shanks was walking when he did Alicia's Conquerors Haki. Whereas Luffy, every time I've seen him do it, he's always standing still. That may not be a big deal, potentially, but I believe every time I've seen Luffy use Conquerors Haki the entire story, whether it was in the pre-time skip or the post-time skip, he was always standing still to activate it. Even in the movie, Stampede against Bullet, both Bullet and him are standing still. Shanks was walking. Shanks could actually move, and yeah, Shanks could actually move. Ooh.
We got him.
This could be definitely used, I think, in a 1v1 setting, if you could exude a constant pressure over the opponent with your own Conquerors Haki, thereby making the fight more difficult for them, because that pressure would siphon their stamina, maybe even like make their attacks slower, that kind of stuff. Who the hell knows, right? Oof, oh my god. Now, the final thing. Yeah, I just realized that Shanks was walking, but I'm thinking about it now. I don't recall, even when he knocked out the guys on Shimoga Archipelago, he did that pulsing thing, and then he walked after it was done. I think, okay, all right. Revelations mid-video. It is what it is. I could, but of course, just in case, I could be wrong on that one. Obviously, this is more of a theory video, so it is what it is there. Finally, the last thing, because the main property of Conquerors Haki is to knock out somebody, but sometimes somebody does not get knocked out. There could be a possibility where Conquerors Haki, instead of knocking out somebody, it can be a mental attack of sorts. Because we don't really see a lot of mental attacks of sorts in One Piece. We really don't. But Conquerors Haki could be that doorway into that realm. The last time I recall a mental attack of sorts in One Piece is Pudding, where Pudding with her powers, she can affect someone's memories and that kind of stuff. But we don't see mental attacks in One Piece, but Conquerors Haki could be a method of mental attack. And whether it's beast, whether it's human, they get knocked out. So it's a mental attack of sorts already. But what if someone doesn't get knocked out? It is possible to where you can psych out a human being like a creature could, and even attack them mentally, like actually attack someone's mind in a way with Conquerors Haki. Someone can't get knocked out immediately, but over the course of time, if you can keep on using Conquerors Haki over and over and over again, you can actually diminish or remove their will to continue to fight against you. Something of that sort. And in this case, I'm a bit reminded of Horty Jones in Fishman Island. When Luffy did his Conqueror Haki wave to knock out 50k Fishman, Horty Jones wasn't knocked out, but when he had his arms spread out like this, he looked towards one of his arms and it was shaking. It was, what the hell? It was kind of shaking. Like, What's my hands are shaking? What's going on? So imagine that moment where Horiko's was kind of shaking, and amplify that to where like his whole body starts to convulse and start to just like he's Tyler One, just oh my god, has the heebie-jeebies and the shivers. He just can't think straight. And let's go a bit further if we're going to be a bit ambitious here. And let's say someone has very good control over their Conquerors Haki. Well, what if they can do things like almost like an RPG status effect, where you have certain things like confusion or dizziness, where you can create these type of things or do these type of things because your Conquerors Haki control is so good. Attack the senses in minor ways, like maybe make someone nauseous or maybe even give someone vertigo, stuff like that. So even if you couldn't knock out somebody fully, if your Conquerors Haki is that pinpoint, you would still have a variety of ways of attacking them mentally. Something like that with just Conquerors Haki. Ooh, that could be devastating. Especially, again, if you could pinpoint that in, let's say, a 1v1 situation, where even if somebody initially won't be like that, over the course of that fight, they wind up being like that. And what comes to mind right now is, let's say, Big Mom's soul pocus in a way, where before she does the soul pocus, you have to fear Big Mom. And Big Mom, when she tries to, let's say, intimidate somebody so they can fear her, we see her eyes kind of glare up. We see the intensity and the bloodlust on her face, where that has an effect on somebody's will to withstand, let's say, Big Mom's pressure. And because of that, she can take away their life force. So folks like Jinbei cannot break at all. But let's say if Jinbei and Big Mom were to fight, and then Big Mom did that, let's say, in the middle of that fight or at the end of that fight, would the same thing apply? I'm not too sure. So that, I think, is actually within the ballpark as well. That is my take on what could be the next stage, the next level of Conquerors Haki. If you want me to talk about the far out stuff, which, again, it's gonna be some really weird, far out there stuff. If you want me to do a video on that one, I can. But let me know in the box down below. I mentioned one of like the 4 or 5 things that come to mind. That's like crazy. I want to keep more in the ballpark here. And even then, I'll acknowledge that this could all be wrong, and it could just simply be, okay, you know what, just knock out more guys, that's it. But who knows? Let me know your stance on the subject matter at hand. Be sure to rate the video. Not that hard to do. I guarantee you that, because I know that you all have a device called Zamaosu. You use Zamaosu to click, rate the video, to click, subscribe, to click on that bell to join the squad. And of course, as always, feel free to please do comment in the comment section down below. Peace, and have a nice goddamn